What are you thirsty for? Happy Thirsty Thursday with me, Jake Thurston, on a Saturday. Haha. Sorry for being 2 days late. I had the awesome opportunity to go back to Indiana Wesleyan University this past week, my alma mater, woot woot, to recruit for our residency program at the Ransom Church. And it was an awesome time just recruiting for that residency, but also catching up with some of my dearest friends and profs and my family as well. So that was an awesome week. So that's why you're getting me today on a Saturday. But I just got done hanging out at a coffee shop and reading some of the Word, and I was just so struck with this thing from the passage I read. So I was reading out of 2 Samuel, and it was this message that God gave to the prophet Nathan to tell King David. And the message that he gave to Nathan for King David was that God wanted a house to dwell in. Throughout the Exodus period and when they were dwelling in the wilderness and all those other things, God had the tabernacle and the tent of meeting where his presence dwelt. And basically what that meant was, it wasn't that God was restricted only to the tent of meeting, but rather it was these holy places and the tabernacle that represented God's presence within Israel, within the people of God. And so, once when the Israelites got established in the land of Israel, in the Promised Land, you look through the book of Joshua and the book of Judges and the book of Samuel, and God never had a house to meet in with them. He didn't have a place like the tabernacle. He didn't have a place like the tent of meeting. And so, God is telling Nathan that he's spent all this time since the wilderness period dwelling with the people, walking beside them, helping them through their greatest disasters and all these other things. He has been with the people, but he's not content with just remaining with his people. God wanted to dwell within his people. He wanted a house to dwell in. He wanted to be present within the people that he called his own. Now, we don't have temples today. We worship in churches, but because of what Jesus did, we're able to live free of the law and all these other things. But it still talks about how the Spirit dwells within us, how we are almost tabernacles and temples where the Spirit dwells within us and our greater communities and the church and everything. But I think we still struggle with the same thing that God told Nathan. Is that a lot of times we approach our relationship with God and we pray to him and we ask God to be with us. We ask God to be with us, to walk alongside us in our greatest troubles and all the problems that we have, right? We ask for God to be with us. But God isn't content with just being with us. He wants to dwell within us. He wants to be within us. He wants to be not just a help, not just a crutch, but he wants to be the very fabric of our being. But that is something that we have to allow God to do. A house had to be built. A temple had to be built for God to dwell within his people. And likewise, we have to be willing to let God in. Because Jesus talks about how he stands at the door and knocks. He doesn't barge in because Jesus is polite. Thankfully, we serve a polite God who wants to honor us, right? As much as we dishonor him somehow. And I think too often we're content with God just hanging outside our house. But he wants to come in and dwell with us and be within us. So what are you going to do? What are we going to do? Myself included. Are we content with Jesus just hanging outside our house, being with us? Or are we ready for God to dwell within us and be the very fabric of everything we are and to define our entire existence?